they extended courtesies of this sort. And it was purely a routine interview. We got in to see somebody, and he said, I'd like you to meet Cukor. For some reason, he thought I might do something, and I met George Cukor, and then I did 4 or 5 pictures, one right after the other.
Nancy Jane Kulp was born on August 28, 1921, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, into a family that valued education, discipline, and intellectual curiosity. From a very early age, Nancy showed signs of being exceptionally bright and observant, and her parents nurtured her natural curiosity. Her father, Robert Tilden Kulp, worked as a federal revenue agent, a profession that demanded careful attention to detail and a strong sense of responsibility. Her mother, Marguerite Kulp, was deeply invested in fostering cultural awareness and education at home. The combination of these influences created an environment in which young Nancy developed not only academic skills, but also a keen sense of the world around her. She excelled in school, often standing out among her peers for her sharp mind, her love of learning, and her dedication to doing well in every task. This early focus on education laid the groundwork for the impressive achievements she would accomplish later in life. After finishing her primary education, Nancy went on to attend Florida State College for Women, which is now known as Florida State University. There, she pursued a degree in journalism, a field that suited her natural abilities in communication, observation, and critical thinking. Her years studying journalism gave her skills that would serve her well, including the ability to articulate her thoughts clearly, express herself confidently, and analyze situations with precision. These qualities later became central to both her personal and professional life, particularly in the entertainment industry, where being articulate, observant, and intelligent set her apart from many of her contemporaries. While many young people of her era focused mainly on traditional roles or immediate careers, Nancy displayed an uncommon level of ambition and clarity of purpose. Her time in college was not simply about earning a degree. It was a period in which she honed her identity, developed discipline, and cultivated a worldview that would guide her through both the challenges and the opportunities of adulthood. The combination of her academic excellence, intellectual curiosity, and natural charm created a foundation for a life that would be as varied as it was remarkable. After completing her education, Nancy's life took a dramatic turn due to World War II. Like many young Americans of her generation, she felt a strong sense of duty and a desire to contribute to her country during a time of global crisis. She decided to leave behind the world of journalism, at least temporarily, to join the United States Navy Reserve. Nancy became one of the early women to serve as an officer in WAVES, which stood for Women Accepted for Volunteer Emergency Service. Her role was not limited to ceremonial duties. She worked in aviation training and performed her duties with distinction, eventually rising to the rank of lieutenant junior grade. This experience in the military shaped Nancy in many important ways. She gained a deep understanding of discipline, leadership, and professionalism. She learned to work under pressure, to follow orders while also exercising judgment, and to navigate hierarchical systems in which her intelligence and competence could either be recognized or overlooked. These lessons would later prove essential in her acting career, where long hours, complex social dynamics, and rigid studio hierarchies often demanded patience, insight, and resilience. The time she spent in the Navy also reinforced her sense of independence and her determination to pursue her goals with integrity. Unlike many women of her era who were expected to prioritize domestic life above all else, Nancy demonstrated that a woman could serve her country, pursue professional training, and develop a strong personal identity all at the same time. Her military service was not just a temporary chapter in her life. It was a formative experience that influenced the way she approached her career, her relationships, and her understanding of responsibility and duty throughout her life. By the end of World War II, Nancy Kulp had not only contributed meaningfully to her country, but had also acquired life skills and personal insights that would guide her for decades to come. After the war, Nancy turned her attention to a new ambition: acting. She moved to Hollywood and began studying under the renowned acting teacher Max Reinhardt, one of the most influential figures in theater and film instruction at the time. Unlike many aspiring actresses of her era, who relied primarily on glamour, charm, or physical appearance, Nancy built her career on intelligence, careful timing, and a profound understanding of character. She recognized that longevity in the entertainment industry required more than beauty. It required wit, skill, and an ability to connect with audiences in ways that went beyond superficial appeal. During the 1950s, she appeared in numerous films and television programs, often portraying sharp-witted secretaries, eccentric women, or intellectual figures. Her film credits included appearances in classics such as The Parent Trap, 1961, The Three Faces of Eve, 1957, and Shane, 1953. These roles allowed her to demonstrate a versatility that was rare in Hollywood, where typecasting and stereotypical roles often limited an actress's opportunities. Nancy's performances were consistently marked by subtlety, intelligence, and a warmth that made her characters feel real and relatable. Her dedication to her craft, combined with her life experience, set her apart and eventually led to the role that would define her career. Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies. Nancy Kulp's career reached its highest public recognition in 1962 when she was cast as Miss Jane Hathaway on the iconic television show The Beverly Hillbillies. The show, which revolved around the story of a rural family that suddenly becomes wealthy after striking oil, became a major cultural phenomenon. For Nancy, the role of Miss Hathaway was more than just another acting job. It was an opportunity to blend her intelligence, timing, and subtle humor into a character that could be both memorable and deeply human. Miss Hathaway was the secretary to millionaire oil tycoon Milburn Drysdale, a position that gave her access to many comedic situations while also allowing her character to maintain a sense of dignity, wit, and intelligence. Unlike many female roles on television at the time, which were often limited to stereotypes of charm, beauty, or subservience, Miss Hathaway was portrayed as capable, educated, and thoughtful. Nancy infused the character with warmth and sincerity, making her more than just a foil to the other eccentric characters. She became a symbol of both professionalism and humanity, and audiences responded with overwhelming affection. Her portrayal of Miss Hathaway earned her multiple Emmy nominations and established Nancy Kulp as a recognizable and respected figure in Hollywood. However, with such fame also came challenges. Like many actors strongly associated with iconic characters, Nancy found herself increasingly typecast. Audiences and casting directors alike began to see her primarily as Miss Hathaway, making it difficult for her to secure roles that were very different from the intelligent, refined secretary she had made famous. Despite this, she continued to work steadily, appearing in television shows such as The Mary Tyler Moore Show, The Love Boat, and Fantasy Island. She also reprised her beloved Miss Hathaway role in reunion specials and other projects, always treating the character with the same dignity and care that had made her so memorable. Beyond the screen, Nancy's intelligence, wit, and disciplined approach to life made her well-suited to navigate the often challenging social dynamics of Hollywood. Behind the scenes, however, Nancy faced difficulties that were not apparent to the public. Fans of the Beverly Hillbillies had long suspected that not all of the cast members shared the warm, familial relationships portrayed on screen. In one of her final interviews, Nancy confirmed that there had been tension between herself and Buddy Epson, the actor who played Jed Clampett, the patriarch of the show. She explained that while the public saw a harmonious and cheerful cast, reality was often more complicated. Nancy described Epson as someone who liked to maintain control and whose authority extended beyond his role as an actor to influence the set environment and interactions with colleagues. For a woman like Nancy, who was highly educated, independent, and politically aware, this dynamic could feel stifling. She admitted that she often felt tolerated but never respected, and that subtle slights and exclusions were a frequent experience. Over time, these minor frustrations became more significant, eventually evolving into genuine dislike. Nancy's reflections on this relationship were not delivered with bitterness or the intent to scandalize. Instead, she spoke calmly and thoughtfully, conveying a truth that had been long suppressed, but that reflected her lived experience. Her honesty in later life allowed her to reclaim ownership of her story, reminding the public that the people behind beloved television shows were complex individuals with emotions, ambitions, and struggles that often went unseen. This period of Nancy's life demonstrates an important truth about fame and success. Public recognition does not always equate to personal satisfaction or respect. While she was celebrated by fans and critics for her performances, Nancy's experiences on set illustrate the tension between the idealized images of television and the reality of human relationships. Her approach to these challenges, remaining professional, performing her work with excellence, and speaking out only when she felt it was necessary, highlighted her resilience, intelligence, and dignity. Despite the difficulties, she continued to cultivate her career, maintain her independence, and uphold her values, demonstrating that her personal identity was never entirely defined by the characters she played. While Nancy Kulp's public persona was defined by intelligence, humor, and charm, her personal life reflected a woman navigating both societal expectations and her own ambitions. In 1951, at the age of 29, Nancy married Charles Malcolm Dawkins, a young man who worked as an account executive at WTVJ, a television station in Miami. At the time of their wedding, Dawkins was 23, a notable reversal of the more traditional age patterns in marriage during the early 1950s, when husbands were typically older. This subtle detail hints at Nancy's independent spirit and willingness to step outside societal norms, even in areas as conventional as marriage. The couple had been dating for 5 years prior to their wedding, suggesting a thoughtful and deliberate approach to their relationship rather than impulsiveness. This long courtship indicates that both partners entered marriage with serious commitment, understanding, and shared expectations. Despite these intentions, the marriage proved to be short-lived, lasting only about 2 years before the couple divorced in 1953. While the public record does not provide specific reasons for the divorce, it is reasonable to assume that fundamental differences emerged, perhaps related to personality, ambition, or life priorities. For Nancy, this experience represented an early assertion of her determination to live authentically, even when doing so meant challenging social norms and enduring potential judgment from society. Divorce during this era was still stigmatized, particularly for women, and choosing to end a marriage required both courage and self-awareness. Nancy's decision to prioritize her independence and personal growth over social expectation demonstrates a remarkable sense of self-respect and clarity about what she wanted in life. Beyond her brief marriage, Nancy remained single for the rest of her life, dedicating herself to her career, civic engagement, and personal development. Her personal relationships, though limited in number, reflected her selective nature and commitment to meaningful connections rather than societal conformity. In addition to her acting career, Nancy Kulp demonstrated a strong sense of civic responsibility and political awareness. In the 1980s, she took the unusual step for a Hollywood actress of her generation by entering politics. In 1984, she ran for the United States House of Representatives from Pennsylvania as a Democrat. Though she did not win the election, her campaign was notable for its thoughtfulness, intelligence, and clear purpose. She approached politics not as a means to enhance fame, but as a platform for meaningful public service, reflecting a lifelong commitment to contributing to society that had begun during her military service. Nancy viewed civic participation as a moral responsibility, believing that her education, experience, and public recognition could be leveraged to influence positive change. This engagement in politics illustrates another side of her character, a woman deeply invested in social progress and willing to step outside her comfort zone to advocate for causes she believed in. Her political work was marked by the same combination of intelligence, discipline, and integrity that had defined her acting career, showing that her values extended beyond personal success and fame. It also reinforced the idea that Nancy Kulp was far more than the characters she portrayed on screen. She was a complex individual, capable of bridging entertainment, intellectual pursuits, and civic responsibility. This duality of professional success and personal principle is central to understanding Nancy's life story and the legacy she left behind. Nancy's personal life and civic engagement also highlight the ways she challenged traditional expectations for women in the mid-20th century. From her decision to pursue higher education and military service, to her deliberate approach to marriage and eventual divorce, and finally to her political ambitions, Nancy consistently acted with independence, thoughtfulness, and moral conviction. These choices reflected a deep understanding of herself and the world she inhabited, as well as a determination to live authentically in the face of societal pressures. While the public often remembered her primarily as Miss Jane Hathaway, the intelligent and kind-hearted secretary from the Beverly Hillbillies, those who studied her life closely could see a woman whose accomplishments and values extended far beyond television, encompassing education, civic service, and a commitment to personal integrity. By navigating both her career and her personal life with such care and attention, Nancy Kulp left a model of strength, intelligence, and independence that continues to inspire admiration and respect. As Nancy Kulp entered her later years, she gradually stepped away from the public spotlight, choosing instead to focus on personal interests, reflection, and the quieter rhythms of life. Although she had spent decades performing on screen, she sought peace and stability in a world removed from the often chaotic environment of Hollywood. During her career, she had been known for her sharp intelligence, professionalism, and warmth, but in private, Nancy cherished calm and privacy. Like many of her generation, she had developed habits common in the mid-20th century entertainment industry, including cigarette smoking, which at the time was socially accepted and often seen as part of the daily routines of performers. By the 1980s and early 1990s, the long-term health consequences of smoking were becoming widely recognized, and in 1990, Nancy received a devastating diagnosis: cancer. This news marked the beginning of a challenging period in her life, one that tested both her physical endurance and emotional strength. At this point, Nancy was largely removed from acting and focused on personal fulfillment, civic interests, and the relationships she valued most. Despite the severity of her diagnosis, she faced her treatments with the same intelligence, resolve, and dignity that had characterized her entire life. Chemotherapy at the time was physically demanding and often left patients exhausted, yet Nancy approached each session with determination and realism. Friends and acquaintances recalled her as thoughtful, serious, and brave, enduring the rigors of treatment with quiet courage. As her illness progressed, Nancy shifted her attention from recovery to comfort, reflection, and coming to terms with the natural course of life. She was acutely aware of the impact she had had on the world through her work, and she considered carefully the legacy she would leave behind. Although she had often been typecast in comedic or eccentric roles, most notably as Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, those close to her understood that she was far more complex than the characters she played. Her life encompassed education, public service, and a consistent commitment to integrity and authenticity. In her final reflections, Nancy also revisited her experiences in Hollywood with candor and honesty. In one of her last interviews, she addressed long-standing rumors about her relationships with fellow cast members, particularly Buddy Epson, revealing that the off-screen dynamics were sometimes strained. She described how, despite her professionalism, she felt underappreciated and often constrained by the rigid hierarchies of the studio system. Yet, even in these reflections, her tone was measured and thoughtful, focusing on her own experience rather than casting blame. Nancy's willingness to speak openly about these experiences demonstrated her courage and self-awareness, showing that she valued truth and authenticity over public perception or nostalgia. Nancy Kulp passed away on February 3, 1991, in Palm Desert, California, at the age of 69. Palm Desert, a serene and peaceful community, offered the quiet retreat she had sought in her later years, far from the pressures of Los Angeles and the entertainment industry. Her passing marked the end of a life that had successfully bridged multiple worlds: classical education and show business, comedy and serious thought, public recognition and private conviction. The legacy she left behind is one of warmth, intelligence, and resilience. Fans remember her for her unforgettable portrayal of Miss Hathaway, bringing humor, dignity, and humanity to a character that could have easily become a simple stereotype. Beyond the screen, however, Nancy's life reflects the qualities that truly defined her: courage in the face of personal and professional challenges, dedication to civic engagement, and a steadfast commitment to living authentically. Her story reminds us that behind the laughter and entertainment of television, there are real people with complex experiences, emotions, and values. Nancy Kulp's life was a testament to the power of intellect, professionalism, and independence, and her final reflections ensure that her story remains both inspiring and deeply human. Nancy Kulp's influence extends far beyond the television screens where millions first knew her as Miss Jane Hathaway. While she brought laughter, intelligence, and charm to one of the most beloved shows in television history, her impact also resonates in her demonstration of personal integrity, professional dedication, and independence. She showed that women could be more than their appearances, more than sidekicks or decorative roles, and that intelligence and wit could be celebrated on screen. Kulp's career, spanning film, television, and even a brief foray into politics, illustrates the versatility and courage she displayed throughout her life. Her portrayal of Miss Hathaway was a quiet revolution in its own way. The character was refined, witty, loyal, and intelligent, often serving as the voice of reason among the eccentric and sometimes chaotic cast. Audiences responded not only to the humor she provided, but also to the sincerity and subtle depth she brought to the role. Unlike many comedic characters who fade into stereotype or caricature, Miss Hathaway retained dignity, intelligence, and relatability, a direct reflection of Nancy's own values and approach to her work. Her success in this role cemented her place in television history, earning multiple Emmy nominations and ensuring her continued recognition in reruns, interviews, and retrospective discussions about classic television. Yet Kulp's contributions were not confined to entertainment alone. She also exemplified the potential of public engagement, education, and personal courage to leave a lasting mark on society. Beyond her on-screen accomplishments, Nancy Kulp serves as an example of a woman who pursued her life with determination, curiosity, and moral CLA. From her disciplined upbringing in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to her time in the Navy Reserve during World War II, Kulp consistently demonstrated a commitment to service, professionalism, and integrity. She applied these values not only to her career, but also to her personal life and civic engagement. Even her brief marriage and eventual divorce reflect her insistence on living authentically, making choices that aligned with her understanding of self-respect and independence rather than merely